All right, guys, so I'm back in the shop. Before I can put the 1UZ back in the car, I'm going to be doing some routine maintenance to it. One of the things I need to do is a timing belt. This engine came out of a 99 LS400. The mileage on it was around 225,000 when it was pulled out, but I have no idea of what the maintenance history is on it. So we're going to be going ahead and doing that today. And this is just basically going to be a walkthrough process of how to do that. So without further ado, let's get started.
Alright, so the first thing that needs to happen is I need to pull this fan clutch pulley off. I'm going to be running an electric fan, so I have zero use for this pulley. And once this out of the way, I can go ahead and pull this coolant line off. It's held to the front of the motor by a 10mm nut on the cam cover, and then this 10mm bolt on the side of the head. Then once that's out of the way, we can go ahead and pull the right cam cover off. It's held on by 3 10mm bolts, and that 10mm nut that was holding the coolant line on. And then once that's out of the way, we can go ahead and move on to the left cam cover. It's held on by 4 10mm bolts and another 10mm nut. Before we can get the cam cover off, we've got to get this plug out of there. So we'll just remove this rubber grommet from the harness. And that allows you to slide the plug through the cam cover. Just like so. At this point, I got a little ahead of myself and went ahead and loosened up the idler pulley, but I couldn't take it off yet. It's just held on by 2 12mm nuts and a 12mm bolt, but I gotta pull the thermostat housing first. It's just held on by 2 12mm bolts. And I gotta get this coolant hose off. And then this thermostat housing was a pain in the neck to get off. The O-ring was seized, and I had to beat on it and pry on it, but eventually I got it. And there it is. With the thermostat housing out of the way, we can go ahead and pull this timing cover off. It's just held on by 2 12mm bolts. Now we can go ahead and remove that idler pulley. The next step is to go ahead and set it at top dead center on the compression stroke. And do that by lining this little groove in the crank pulley up with 0. Now with that lined up, we just make sure that the timing marks on the cam and the head are lined up. Do not line it up with the T. Line it up with this other mark instead. I marked mine with a black Sharpie to make it more visible. Since this is an interference engine, factory recommends we set it at 50 degrees past top dead center. You can do that by lining the groove and the crank pulley up with the cam bolt. Next, we're going to go ahead and pull the rest of this fan clutch pulley assembly off. With that out of our way, we can see the groove and the crank pulley lined up with the cam bolt. Alright, then we work on getting the crank pulley off. Yours is probably not going to come off this easy, but mine's loosened a $2 hooker on a Saturday night and all but fell off. Then we'll go ahead and remove this timing cover that's held on by 4 10mm bolts that I keep dropping everywhere. Then we pull this spacer out of here, remove that plastic cover. Then we remove the hydraulic tensioner held in by 2 12mm bolts, and now we can remove the timing belt. As you can see, one of my cams turned when I pulled the timing belt off. I suggest marking your cam, that way if it does do that, you can put it back to where it was. Then we remove this tensioner. I'm dropping tools left and right. I'm not really sure what size Allen it is. Then this SOB was stuck tighter than Dick's hat band, so I had to break the breaker bar out to get it loose. There she goes, just like that. And I am sweating like an absolute hog out here in this Tennessee heat. Just look at that fat drip off my face there. Oh look, it's my missing cam cover bolt. Not really sure how it got in the timing belt area, but I'm glad I found it. Oh, and there I just dropped it. Son of a gun. Then just go around and remove all the 12mm bolts that hold the water pump on. Do not forget the 2 studs at the top of the water pump. They look like they're made into the water pump, but they run all the way through into the block, so don't pry on your water pump until you get that out of the way. And I had no idea how much coolant was still in this engine and made an absolute mess in the floor of my shop, as you can see here. But with a little bit of prying and wiggling, the water pump comes off pretty easy. Then we just remove the old gasket. And then we're going to prep the surface and clean it up for the new gasket. Spray some brake clean on there, give it a little scrub of dub. I'm going to pull out a razor blade for some of the tougher spots where old gasket's stuck. Then we go ahead and add our new gasket. Go ahead and put this O-ring on. Make sure you lube that thing up with some Dawn dish soap. You can use spit in a pinch, but just make sure you use a lot of it. Go ahead and slide the water pump on nice and easy. And go around and replace all your bolts. Get them snug first and then torque them down to 13 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. I didn't follow a particular pattern, I just went side to side with it. But you just want to make sure you do that so that it's torqued evenly. Now we go ahead and install our new timing belt tensioner pulleys. Both of these get torqued to 25 foot-pounds. I didn't have the right size Allen head bit for this one, so I used a Torx bit. It was a T.4, that way I could get it torqued properly. And also used blue Loctite on the threads for both these pulleys. Next, we replace our rusty, crusty old hydraulic tensioner with this new style. It's much smaller, and it's got this nifty little grenade pin in there that I really wanted to pull, but I had to wait until the timing belt was installed. Don't do what I'm doing here. Leave that pretty loose so that the timing belt is easier to slide on. Go ahead and get my timing gear back on there. This is our timing belt. It's a Mitsubishi. It's got these nifty little timing marks on it that help you line everything up. Just line those marks on the timing belt up with the marks on the timing gear. Just like so. And I didn't get a whole lot of video of me putting the belt on, but just make sure that all those marks line up. Just like that. And we'll go ahead and torque this down to 19 foot-pounds. And once that's done, we can go ahead and pull the pin. And nothing happened. It's very anticlimactic. Go ahead and put this spacer back on. Go ahead and put that little plastic cover back in. Go ahead and replace our timing cover. I'm really not worried about any kind of torque spec. I'm just getting these things on. They don't matter. Go ahead and get our crank pulley back on. I put a little bit of blue Loctite on the crank bolt as well. And snugged it down. Went ahead and turned the motor over a few times just to make sure everything lines up. And timing marks good there. And timing marks are good there. And they're good there. So it looks like we did a good job. Now we gotta torque down the crank bolt. It is supposed to be torqued down to 181 foot-pounds. My torque wrench only goes up to 150, and considering how loose the crank bolt was whenever I took this thing apart, I'm gonna say 150 foot-pounds will be just fine. But use your own discretion on that one. And as we can see, I forgot a bolt. Go ahead and replace my fan clutch pulley assembly. Get that put back on there. Now we go ahead and get this timing cover plastic back on. That in there. And the next thing on the list is getting thermostat housing back on. Go ahead and get these paper towels out of my way. Get our silicone opened up. Just try to spread this around in a continuous bead if you can. I was not able to. Then we just spread it around with our finger. There's also an O-ring that goes on this housing. Make sure you use some dish soap once again. If you gotta use spit, make sure you hock up a good loogie. It needs to be really slippery to go in there. And once we get that sitting on there, get it hand tight. Don't tighten it down just yet. Let the silicone set up for about an hour before you do that. Now we're going to go ahead and replace my thermostat. Pull the old one out of there. And go ahead and put this new one on. You're supposed to torque these to 13 foot-pounds. I was getting lazy. Now we'll go ahead and get this cam cover put back on. Go ahead and get our wire ran through this other side. Get it tightened down. Make sure we put our rubber grommet back around our wire. And we're done.
All right, y'all. Timing belt's done. She's good to go. Next thing on the list, and I'm going to go ahead and try to get done this weekend, is finish up that rear sump oil pan swap. Right now, it's just held up there with a couple bolts. I need to get the pickup tube in there, get it sealed up, get it done. And then before the engine can go back in the car, I've got a lot of work that I need to do with the transmission. So yeah, I've got a list of stuff that I got to do. But that's it for today. Y'all have a good one. Peace out. Bye.